to the entertaining Talkin' Sports.
What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. Hope everybody's staying safe out there. I'll have a few videos up today, or at least I'm going to try to. But the first one, I feel, I gotta continue to cover the Deandre Baker situation, being that this is by far the biggest story in the New York Giants world. Baker, of course, the former first-round pick. More news came out on him today regarding the case. Of course, he was charged with 8 different counts. And has surrendered to the police as of yesterday with his lawyer, and they're starting to work on the case. And today, Baker was let out on bond. We'll get into all the specifics. In addition to that, the New York Giants spoke on the matter as well in terms of how they want him to act with the team as we're getting closer and closer to the start of what we hope is the offseason for the New York Giants. Something came out, I think, yesterday that teams could start. I don't know if it's today, tomorrow, very soon. Within the next 2 or 3 days, teams are going to be able to start reporting to camp in some capacity. The New York Giants, though, from what I've heard, will not yet, which only makes sense. The New York and New Jersey area has been hit harder than any other area by a lot when it comes to this. So hard that the New York Giants have actually explored the possibility of potentially having training camp outside of the state. But, we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. I'm sure, there'll be stories on that as well. But this is about DeAndre Baker and some of the things that came out today as he starts, the process of defending the actions that he's been accused of. But let's get into some of the quotes that came out today. The first thing we're going to talk about is this. Talking about, at first, Dunbar. Dunbar was accused of 4 counts. Baker, double that. So they held bond at $25,000 per, thing that they were being charged with. Baker, because he's being charged with 8, had bond at $200,000. In the case of Dunbar, that totaled $100,000. For Baker, who was facing 4 counts of armed robbery with a firearm and 4 counts of aggravated assault with a firearm, the bond totaled $200,000. In addition to the $200,000 bond, Baker was ordered to surrender his concealed carry permit, as well as any firearm and ammunition he owns within 48 hours. And I mean, that's just practical. That only makes sense. Whether he's innocent or not, he is being tried for something very seriously, and that only makes sense that they would request him to turn in his firearms until they figure out, where this case is going to go. Next thing we're going to pull up. Further, it was mandated that Baker remain in the state of Florida, although that ruling can be modified in the event the Giants open team facilities in East Rutherford, New Jersey, and Baker is required to return for work. So there you have it. And who knows when the New York Giants are going to open up the facility, and who knows if the New York Giants are going to ask him to be there. We're going to have to wait and see how that plays out, because when you hear the next bit of news, they may not. And I'll give my reason as to why that may be. It might not be the reason why you may be thinking. Finally, Baker has been ordered to refrain from any communication with the alleged victims or witnesses. Again, that's just common sense. Obviously, you don't want them potentially bribing witnesses or, victims or whoever else influencing the case. So, just common stuff. This is what came out regarding the New York Giants and their response to DeAndre Baker and the entire situation right now from Pat Leonard of the Daily News. DeAndre Baker has been told to stay away from the Giants' virtual meetings for the time being and focus on his legal issues, according to a source familiar with the club's thinking. So, there you have it. And as far as that goes, I know a lot of people are going to read that and they're going to say, oh, he's definitely gone. And he may be. We're not going to know that for a while. Of course, it's not just the case. We've heard about the virtual meetings, although that was, it was voluntary. So, but with his past history, I get why Giants fans are up in arms about it. And not to mention the guy was going out to a party during a pandemic. So, doesn't look the best on DeAndre Baker, whether he's innocent or whether he's not, when it comes to the New York Giants. But the reason I think that they're asking him to stay away from the team has as much to do with, obviously, he's dealing with a serious situation right now in his own life. He's potentially facing up to 10 years or more in prison, and they want his attention focused there. But even more so, I think they don't want him to be a distraction for the football team. That doesn't necessarily mean that he will not be back with the New York Giants, or they don't plan to have him back if he is proved innocent. But obviously, the talk of the virtual meetings, or all anybody would be thinking about during the meetings, would be the biggest story going on right now in the sports world, or one of them, and that, of course, being their teammate DeAndre Baker. And the Giants want to make sure that these guys are focused and getting ready for the season. So to me, it only makes sense that the Giants request that he remain out of the Zoom meetings. Of course, Deandre Baker, at least as of this year, probably wouldn't have shown up to him anyway if it was voluntary. But we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. Like I've said all along, innocent until proven guilty. We'll wait until the facts present themselves. But I'm sure this case will be, obviously starting to pick up steam in the coming weeks. But for now, Deandre Baker is out of jail on $200,000 bonds. He has to remain in the Florida area, had to turn over all of his weapons, and if the Giants will allow it, once they open up the facilities at in New York, in New Jersey, in East Rutherford, Deandre Baker is allowed to come and practice with the football team. But for now, the New York Giants have requested that he stays out of the Zoom meetings for the football team. My line of thinking with that, like I said, I think it's more to do with the fact that they don't want him to be a distraction for all these new players that are trying to learn the playbook. Guys like Daniel Jones and everybody else. They have a lot of learning to do. It's a completely new system on both sides of the football, and the last thing they need is a distraction. As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.